Pavlovas, and everything, and that's just some
It was
comedy
excellent
gold.
stuff. Yes,
I
if
mean,
you caught
it
it,
was top tier podcasting, wasn't it? Like it
yeah,
really was. Um, we are back. We are back. Hello, Phil. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm knackered.
Knackered.
It's been a
Are
week.
you tired of the discourse? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah. I just feel like it's been really kind of exhausting and badly handled, and all a bit kind of blown out of proportion, to be honest.
That doesn't sound for a second like football Twitter or just football discourse whatsoever, mate. Uh, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's just surprising things that maybe football's changing. I haven't noticed or something, but oh, that sounds like Ange Postecoglou. So it sounds like something he would say. I've just been listening to his voice so much.
I mean, before we look, he has had his press conference today. We are going to dive into that in a bit. Just what are you, what are you kind of feeling, mate? How are you feeling after the other day? Do you think he had a point? Are you settling on? Let's just call it quits, because I'll be honest, I'm kind of in that place of like, look, I'm not fully on board with him, with what he's saying and everything like that. I do think he's throwing the fans under the bus a little bit, but equally, maybe we need that. Maybe we need this ego that never wants to lose, blah, 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 blah. Either way, I just hope, as I said the other day, summer comes, everyone gives their head a wobble, and we can go into the next season sort of afresh, right? How are you feeling?
Yeah, yeah. Same, to be honest. I mean, as much as I think you're right, and let's be honest, this has been a very conflicting week with the Arsenal game. Sorry, with the City game. In fact, I even called it an Arsenal game. Speaks volumes.
Yeah, he
But
won't like that, mate. He won't like that.
but the fact that it's been conflict, it's conflict, and it's been a difficult like thing to get our heads around, suggests that yeah, we do need to have that. There is part of this that we do need to, as a fan base. It's something I've said before, that we kind of need to get on board with what Spurs is wanting to do. That being said, I still think there is kind of room for this, somewhat bizarre situation that we were faced with this week to have a bit of nuance about it. And I think that again, Ange probably could have handled it probably a bit better. His press conference earlier, I think it was sort of his attempt to take the sting out of the situation a bit, but also not 100%. I mean, I'm not expecting him to sort of apologize to the fans or anything like that. I don't think that's necessary and warranted, but I don't know. I still think that there's room for understanding in what the Spurs fans' point was this week in lead up to this game, which seems to have passed him by massively. But yeah, let's just finish this season, start, draw a line under this sort of thing, after we've talked about it in detail, obviously. Yeah, I'm nowhere near like the kind of get Ange out sort of thing.
No, 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 no.
Not at all, not at all. I mean, that's just kind of crazy talk. But again, but even within that, I still think there's kind of room to be like, I'm still going to have an opinion on if I think something's not quite right.
It's wild, isn't it? Because like on that one, you look at even Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich struggling to bring in a manager. They've kind of had this rather humbling and pretty embarrassing public spat with Thomas Tuchel. Now it seems, they've tried to recruit somebody behind his back, and then they've briefed the press saying actually we've given him an olive branch and he's going to stay on as manager. And I don't know if you saw today, he publicly just came out in his press conference, said, "No, I don't know what's going on. This is my last ever Bayern Munich press conference as manager. I'm not staying there." Because they've tried to recruit people
Mm,
behind his back. So, I mean, to the point, it's not, we're not here to talk about Bayern Munich, but it's just the point that if even a club like Bayern Munich is struggling to bring somebody in, we don't need that merry-go-round again. We don't need that just because, ironically enough, it probably would be Thomas Tuchel that would be the manager if Ange were to go this summer. And I don't think we need any more ex-Chelsea managers through the door. But I don't look. There's not a part of me that wants to see Ange go, and I do agree with you. I think at the same time, I retain the right to be, um, here's actually very good comment from Snake here. Agnostic, which is I quite like that, and I think that's pretty apt.
That's very
That's
good.
quite a nice one because yeah, I look the main really the main red flag for me out of all of this, right? It's not even he's dug the fans out and all that because that has wound me up a bit. I think the only thing that this has brought out is that he's quite a bit more thin-skinned than I thought he was. Um, Even people saying like, again, this is one of those things. I keep going on about this about having conflicting thoughts in my head at the same time. But seeing the manager kind of fronting up to a fan in the stands, right, shouting at that lad
Mm,
who was heckling him, my demon brain, I think my true self is like, go on, Ange. There's that toxic sort of bit of me that quite likes just that sort of thing happening. Someone's shouting something, and he's kind of like, right, I'll give you some back. I'll come and let's see how loud you are if I start shouting back at you, kind of thing. Equally, though, there's that bit of me that's like, you're a Premier League football manager, fella. Like, people shout stuff from the stands. Like, what are you doing, mate? Like, and people are very quick to be like, well, he's only human. He's responding to the thing. But it's like, this is a geezer that's also saying, like, this club's mentality is X, Y, Z. You need to have this type of
mm.
mentality to win to X, Y, Z. Well, I don't see Pep Guardiola going and fronting up to people in the stands like Mourinho, Ancelotti, and this is a guy that this is the sort of company that he wants to keep. He wants to win the Premier League. I think. Look, I'll be honest. I don't think anybody has come out of this smelling the roses, and it's just another annoying chapter in the book of Tottenham Hotspur, isn't it? It's somehow or another we end up being at the bottom of whatever it is. Arsenal may be going on to win the league or not, but somehow it's come around to being all about Tottenham, and all of the discourse is all about Tottenham, as opposed to, well, Arsenal wouldn't have had to have worried about Tottenham doing this had they not been battered at home by Aston Villa a couple of weeks ago. You know, that
Mm.
seemingly gets lost from the discourse, and it all becomes about Tottenham and whether or not they are the kind of the kingmakers. It's, I don't know.
Yeah,
Arsenal just get
yeah,
away with it.
and a
They get
lot of
away
that
with
to
it.
as much as again, so sorry, yeah, as much as it's a weird situation, and I think there's quite a difference of being like, oh, I'm a bit conflicted about how, yeah, obviously I want Spurs to win, but I don't want Arsenal to win. That sort of conflict to then sort of like being a few rows behind the manager and slagging him off. I think those are quite separate things, but yeah, I just think that the whole kind of discourse, he didn't help the discourse with his comments on Tuesday night. That's the thing. If it would have, if it was, well, Spurs actually put gave not Man City a scare, because that sounds quite tin pot, but you know actually played really well, and and that's what the narrative should have been. That's what he should have come out and said with the, yeah, I understand the fans, but we played really well, and it's a good sign for the future. And we wouldn't even be part of the conversation because the narrative would pick something else. It would find another thing to talk about ad nauseum. But again, because the season's petering out as well, not a hell of a lot's going on, and everyone pretty much assumes that City are going to win the league because they probably are from here. Then there's just been this fervent need for another subject, and it's been this, and it was based on Ange's comments, frankly, and that's what's kind of blow the whole thing massively out of proportion, I think. So learning moments for all of us, put it that way.
Do you know what though? Honestly, I still take this over seeing Arsenal fans getting Son 7 on the back of Arsenal replica shirts, because they would have done all that
100%,
tin pot muggy shit.
100%, 100%. And again, I think I said yesterday on the Thursday pod that if this situation happens again next season, I'm going to feel the same way. I'm still going to have that conflict, as it were. It's just what football is to me. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean about weak mentality. If I could pick anything, it would be Spurs having run away with the league by now, and none of this could ever come up again. But if it does, I don't want to see Arsenal win anything.
Let's dive into Ange's press conference. So he was asked up top. I'm just, I'm going through it. I'm going through the sort of the every word. So I'll read through it, and then we can sort of react in whatever where we can, and then I can do a thumbnail of us going. He was asked, "How's the squad?" He said, oh, Jesus Christ, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Giovanni Lo Celso."
Of course it is.
Oh man,
fragile, mate. Talking of fragile,
yeah. He got a bit of a knock when he came on, and he didn't train. He was on for about a minute. Like, what's going on? That fella cannot be asked, can he? Like, for a second. Everyone else is still recovering a bit from the game, but nothing that will keep them out. Blah blah blah. Similar squad to the last game. Straight in with the big questions. Have those inside issues you mentioned been addressed since Tuesday? No, not in 2 days, mate. No, I think, as I said at the time, we got some work to do. That's clear and evident. That's what we need to focus on. I'm guessing, right? So what are they saying? Like those inside issues. It's going to be whoever it is, the tea lady that said to him, "Oh, I hope you don't let Arsenal win," and he's had a big strop about it, right? So
yeah. Teapots, AOTS, biscuits slammed against the wall, all sorts.
He was asked off the back of that, has this whole issue made you even more determined to turn the club into winners? He said, I've been determined since day one. That hasn't changed. I haven't been deterred if that's what people are worried about. Certainly not. I think when you accept a role and accept the challenge of that role, and nothing that's happened in the last few weeks has changed my blah, 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 blah. I want to carry on winning, that type of stuff. There's no point kidding yourselves that you're somewhere you're not, then you can't improve. Fine. Do you know what I mean? I think it's kind of reassuring, because a few people were sort of panic stricken that he might walk, that he might leave because he thinks the club's, a club of losers and all that type of thing. I'll be honest, I've never seen that happening. Managers, they don't just walk out of jobs. They're not going to do themselves out of, he's probably got tens of millions of pounds coming his way from Tottenham Hotspur. He's not going to walk away from that, is he? I mean, whatever people want to say about, that's not why he's here. It's part of the reason he's here. He's in his 60s. You know what I mean? He hasn't got many other big gigs left in him, probably. So,
Yeah, this is the culmination of his career in, well, depends how it pans out, I suppose. But in terms of earning, yeah.
Poor sod. This is what he's built to. This is kind of the roadmap for him. It all ends at Tottenham Hotspur. It all ends
pissed off.
It all ends at being told, sorry, we couldn't sell Emerson Royale for £50 million, so you have to play him for another season. Oh dear. This isn't what he was promised, was he? Here's an interesting one. Let's just do this question quickly before we carry on with his press conference. You may know of this lad, Tom Foynes. He says, "All right, chaps. Wondering if Ange has taken a bit of a defensive streak, as he never feels taken seriously." Do you know what? That's something I've not actually considered, and that's actually really fair enough. I'm not going to lie. Like, I hadn't even thought about that for a second, and that makes absolutely total sense, doesn't it? No, I don't want to lose. These lot do. Like, I'm not the Aussie guy that you all said was going to fail. Yeah, kind of makes sense.
Just copy of Pep, mate. Which, to be fair, he leaned into a little bit with a joke. But yeah. I mean, I can. That's a fair point. But also, yeah, just you have to have a thicker skin if even if still that's the case, right?
Yeah, it does. These questions are so, he hates these ones. How do you expect the club to look in 12 months' time? Do you know what I mean? Whoever's thought of that, I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know which ones asked him that, but they know. They're asking those questions. I know what will wind him up. I know what will get the soundbite. He says, it's hard to say, because as I said the other night, we've made progress, but obviously there's still a long way to go. Believing that progress is entrenched into who we're going to be next year. I don't really get. He sometimes says stuff. I'm like, I don't really get the point you're making there, mate. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I find that if you actually watch the kind of press conference videos, it makes more sense and you get more of a sense, as you would expect. But yeah, sorry, go on.
He said, there's part of me that thinks it's pretty exciting. a lot of these guys have set a pretty decent performance level in their first or second year with us. And if there's growth, then we're going to be an even better football club next year. I certainly feel that we'll be starting well ahead of where we were this year. Where that takes us will depend on how we deal with whatever challenges we have. Quite like that answer. Not going to lie,
Yeah.
it's decent. He's asked about Celtic winning the title. I don't care. He just says, well done. Do you know what I mean, basically? Dejan Kulusevski has been encouraged by progress. Is that nice to hear? He says, I guess that's important. The players are the most important component in all of this. No, they're not. Sorry, they're not. We are. Stop mugging us off.
We're not. We're not.
We
We're
are.
inconsequential
We
fans.
pay their wages, mate. We pay their wages. You know,
Yeah, still.
all those little jumpers with cockerels on that you buy. Do you know what I mean? That's going straight into the pocket of Dejan Kulusevski, right? Only because he wants to come on and score a goal for Arsenal. Then not allowed to say that one. Get in trouble for that as well. Trouble with who? What are you going to do? You going to arrest me? Go on. Please don't. Irrespective of my ideas and what I feel needs to improve, it does need the buy-in of the players. We've had that for the most part. Ooh, side eye. My assessment at this point is a lot of it I still don't feel is embedded in everything that we do. Until we get to that point, it's very hard to think about how we get to the next level. Reticent to move on from where we are now in terms of what we're trying to build, unless I feel that players, staff, everybody is really firmly on board with the way that we want to play and train. It does. I mean, like, it's all a bit kind of like, look, just I'm here and I want to go to here, but I'm not going to go to here until people are, just do it. Just, do you know what I mean? Just make the team better. Stop with all this stuff. Like, do you know what I mean? It all feels a bit word spaghetti. Like, just make your job is to make the team better. Just do that. Stop like sort of saying, I'm not going to make the team as good as I could because they're not buying into it. It's sort of like he says weird stuff sometimes that it does annoy me a little bit. But
recently as well, that sort of come into, I'm not even talking around the Arsenal game. A lot of that seems to have crept in a bit of a realization. I think maybe that they're not just going to be told to play better. There needs to be something else.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. I guess we'll get to this. Just Chris Davidson has said he finds it quite concerning that Ange was mocking the rivalry. Was City a bigger game for him than Arsenal? It would make sense given his laissez-faire comments after the Arsenal game to his eruption after City. I'm not sure what that is yet, Chris, but I'm sure we'll get onto that from here. But that's quite interesting. He's asked how Ange was asked how he's going to reflect on the season. Start the process towards the end of the season. There's various meetings I'm having this week. We've still got a game to go, which is really important for us. I'll try to get as much information as I can before I start reflecting. Blah, blah, more word spaghetti from him. He was asked if he'd seen the Rodrigo Bentancur incident, if he's spoken to him. He said he's had a chat with him. He was angry, but I don't think that's the way to react. He understands that, but that wasn't the biggest issue of the night for me. Fair enough. He was asked what he was annoyed about. He wants to win. He's out there trying to help a team to win. He wanted to be out there fighting. Okay, fair enough. Any thoughts on that, mate? On Bentancur?
No, but again, like this, I mean, I think he goes on to say about the discipline of the team, and I think he doesn't sort of like have a go at Bentancur in this press conference here, but he kind of references, well, he got a yellow card, then he gives the ball away. So because he's got the yellow card, he can't take out the player, so they score. And I'm just like, you're exacerbating a situation, or potentially exacerbating a situation that we've all just seen play out with Bentancur kicking the shit out of the chair, right? So. And again, it's just different to what I think people are used to seeing. We all complain about kind of managers and players being really boring and media trained, but there is a kind of reason why they're media trained and they don't kind of like air the dirty laundry in public and certainly in front of the media, because it causes problems. It causes problems with the team and the kind of the pressure from the outside. And these are kind of tangible things that can actually hinder your progress. So again, I'm just a bit like, you could have just if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. Obviously, that's fine. But I'm just saying that this other side of it, you're just kind of heaping more pressure and focus and sound bites on situations that are already quite difficult. You know, Bentacle's had a difficult season. His form's been pretty low these last few months, maybe. Started playing well against City, gets taken off and is frustrated. Just, use it as a positive, spin the positive on it, because it is a positive.
He
But
was
instead
really
kind
good
of,
against City as well, wasn't he?
yeah, just kind of throwing out some kind of like digs and not pointing the blame. But when you talk about conceding a goal and you mention a player's name, that's like a lightning bolt to these players, right? They
Mm.
take it really personally. So again, it feels like I'm kind of splitting hairs on this, but you know what I mean. It just feels like it's again just being a bit too kind of open and not really appreciating that these things can cause problems.
I'm guessing Charlie Eccleshare asked him what he made of the VAR vote and what his position is. He
Yeah, it
said,
was.
come on, is this your first press conference, Charlie? Look, I've consistently said I'm not a fan of it. I don't think they will revert. They're too far down. I just don't think it's served the purpose that it should. They should bring it in when technology can match expectations, and I don't think it does at the moment. Etc. 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 He's kind of going on about this a bit. I I mean, it's not going to go, is it? Annoyingly, I wish it would. I was sort of really hoping that this might be a give us our game back moment. I do feel like because we are. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to have the Champions League offside system next season, right? In the Premier
I
League,
think so. Yeah, yeah.
where it's like semi-automated or automatic offsides, whatever it is, which
Mm.
will hopefully make VAR at least seem a bit less painful. Because I think one of the worst things about VAR at the moment is the offsides, right? The fact it takes so long. We got these pixelated images that there seems to be like wild inconsistencies between what's an offside and what isn't half the time. Like sometimes they're measuring from this part of the body, sometimes from that. Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like at least if we've got that automated thing, if it's a bit more like the goal line technology in terms of on offsides, it will feel less painful. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I, I'm,
definitely. And I think that his go on.
I was just going to say, I still just feel like a lot of the issues with VAR are the fact that it's down to, you know, it's human error, isn't it? It's those kind of like why so often is the softest touch on the halfway line not a penalty, like a free kick immediately. And then half the time
Mm,
we've seen so many kicks and lashes out at Tottenham players in the box this year that what have we had? One penalty, two penalties in the Premier League?
mm. Two, maybe. Yeah,
I don't know. There's such an inconsistency with the application of rules and everything in the Premier League that VAR just adds more confusion to it for me. So
yeah, yeah. I think there's 2 points to it for me. That the fact that Ange made this point as well, that the technology has to be at its absolute peak for it to work, because otherwise it slows the game down, which is what we're seeing. And the other point is that at the end of the day, it's still human error. The technology itself doesn't make any decisions. I mean, it sounds like it will do now with the offsides. We'll see how that pans out. But you've still got pretty poor officiating, which is the problem, right?
yeah,
So yeah, VAR. I've always felt like it's been a bit of a um, distraction, to be honest, in terms of what the actual problem is, and that is that there's just inconsistency with how the officials enact the rules, and that that'll still be the case no matter what technology you're using, or if you're not. So that for me is the bigger sort of issue if we actually want to get a better, fairer game. But is that even what we want? Well, I think fans probably want that, but it feels like maybe certain clubs want a bit of element of control, and so does
mm.
Sky, etc. Here comes my conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I think so. He said that basically that he sort of ended on that every decision's been scrutinized. We don't celebrate goals anymore. We celebrate them, and wait to see if somebody's offside. Linesmen haven't put up their flags. It's changed the game, so I'd scrap it. Not because I'm against implementing it, but get the technology right first, prove that it works. Kind of fair
Mm.
enough, I think. Have you spoken to those at the club who will vote about your views? He said, you know, yeah, fine. I think he just says they're not going to come to me to ask. They know exactly how I feel about it. Right.
I'm
So
surprised
this
they haven't had the conversation, though. I have to say, I would have thought that the managers would have fed into this, but
this is
let's.
probably
It
part of the
feels like a
culture
minor
at
thing.
Tottenham, though, mate. That winds managers up, isn't it? That still there's this level of we'll sort all this bit out. But
Mm.
that's purely speculation on my part. It starts to get meaty here, mate. You're normally so aligned with the fans, but there was a divergence on Tuesday. He said to that, I'd like to think I didn't change my stance. I was asked after the game about the atmosphere, and I said I think it was normal. And I also didn't say I expected fans to behave differently. I still stand by that. And I also stand by my right to have a different opinion. I don't think that's right. It's just the way I feel. You support your team to win all the time, but that's my view. I guess I got that wrong. Plainly, I'm in the minority when it comes to that, so there's a lesson. I don't think I expressed any real disappointment in terms of asking or pleading for them to do something against their will, so I'll accept that. I mean, again, that's disingenuous because this is implicit from
Mm.
everything that he's saying here, but let me carry on with what he's saying. We've got to hope we're never in that situation again, but if we are, then we should approach it, then we would approach it differently because I didn't take it seriously. I really genuinely believed that when we got to the stadium, it would be a normal game. And it wasn't. And people feel really strongly. And I've just got to accept it. I mean, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that, man. Come on. What he didn't
No,
know
no,
that Tottenham and
no.
Arsenal is a massive rivalry. Like, come on.
Yeah, it is such a strange oversight, I think. And again, it's not. I don't think it's equal. I don't think it's just unique to Tottenham and Spurs, Tottenham and Arsenal even. Um, Football rivalry is a thing at any level of the game in any country, surely. Maybe differently, there's different cultures and whatever, but it's just such a surprise. And I don't necessarily buy that as the kind of, I mean, he hasn't sort of apologized. And again, I don't think he should. I don't think he should have to or anything like that. But I think some people took this as him being like, "Oh, I got it wrong, sorry," which I don't think it was that at
No,
all.
I
I don't
don't.
think it.
I
I
think he's
think it's him
I think
saying
he's sticking the boot in
it's stuck.
again, to
Yeah,
be honest.
he is. He's doubling down on it. And again, that's fine. But I just, if that's what he wants to do, then that's fine. If that's how he wants to approach, if he's got a method for dealing with this sort of thing, if this is the kind of the culture of the club that he's trying to unpick, then fine. He's the football manager. He can. It's on him. But again, I just don't think it's that hard a concept to grasp. The
No.
the conflict of interest, the conflictive feeling that most of us had going into this game, seeing as soon as it was put on as our penultimate game of the season, knowing how this season was looking like it was going to pan out, we've all had most of us have had these conflicting emotions towards it. I don't. I just again, I was just go back to this point. I just think he's kind of blown it out of proportion. I think.
Look, I mean, fine if he feels this way, but also equally, then I feel even more emboldened to say, well, why are you getting battered by teams like Fulham? Like, why are
Yeah.
you, like you've had a lot of good faith and a lot of support from the fan base. We've seen you with 9 men against Chelsea still stubbornly stick to your principles and camp on the halfway line. And Nicholas Jackson's gone and scored a hat trick against us. And still people have chanted your name and filled up the stadium week after week. So maybe just kind of sometimes see where there's a line for a lot of fans. And maybe don't think you get to come in and dictate what's what in terms of the history of the club, because this rivalry is 100 years old, if not more, and it will be that long after you've gone as well, mate. So
It means something. It means something. And again, if
yeah,
you take that away from football, then it's become even more sanitized. And I don't mean sanitized in the sense because you want to be throwing vile abuse at your rivals. I just think it takes away a huge part of what football is. Certainly for
I
me,
do
and
want
it
to do
just
that
makes.
part though as well. That part's quite
Well, yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was just saying about sanitizing it. but yeah, again, I just think it's such a kind of an unnecessary thing that we've found ourselves in. He's chosen to kind of pick this fight, which, like, who cares what the fans think as well? Like, we have no say in anything. We literally had a season a few years ago when there was no fans in the stadium and they still went ahead with it. Like, we're just ancillary to all of this. So, you know, I just find it's again just a strange kind of situation that has been really kind of, I say, blown out of proportion, man.
This is okay, right. This is quite a big one. It was said you're normally very much in control on the touchline. What happened with the fan behind the dugout that caused you to react the way you did? He said two separate issues. If you're going to sit behind the bench, especially in a home game, you got to be respectful in earshot of the most important people. He wasn't happy we'd just conceded a goal. So I turned around to find out what his problem was, and he used language that he shouldn't have, and he was abusive. If I hear that, I don't care who it is, I'm going to deal with it. He's more than welcome to come back and take up his seat, express his opinions. But if he swears and if he's abusive, he'll get the same treatment from me again. But at the same time, you also feel, well, mate, I cop it at opposition grounds every week. Give me a break at the home ground. All right, okay. Okay, I get what he's saying. He's saying, like, why are my own fans abusing me? I get that away. You should have my back. Yeah, I kind of see that point from him. He says, I will explain it this way. It's here we go. This is one. It's probably the worst experience I've had as a football manager in a game, because once I realised that I got it wrong in terms of what the atmosphere was going to be like and what people felt, I got a real anxiety within me of what happens if Man City, the best team in the world, who are disposing teams easily, 4 at Brighton, whenever they've played, they score 15, 16 goals in the last 4 games. What if they play as well as that and beat us 5-0? I got cold sweats thinking about people questioning my integrity and the people I work with. Even watching the game back, there was a comment somebody mentioned to me in the commentary saying Tottenham are having a real go here. You're laughing about it, but that's 26 years of my life. If nothing else, people should know about me. I love this game. I'm very principled. I'd hate to think, as Manchester City have done to us, we're on the end of a heavy defeat. People will be questioning whether I prepared the team, and before people say it's not going to happen, blah blah blah. Okay, he's kind of look. It's just it seems to be. It's about him. It's kind of to what Tom Foynes was saying, isn't it? It's all about him. It's his anxiety about people doubting him again and doubting his thing. But conversely, doesn't that just make him look a bit tin pot?
Yeah, again, I mean, it's refreshing in a way, isn't it, to have someone speak openly about it rather than kind of try and duck around it. But yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of say, well, this is unfortunately what the job is. People are going to question you at every single turn. Taking the fan element out of it, there's constantly people questioning your integrity, your quality, and all this sort of thing. So, you know, again, I do sort of like I can understand what he's saying. Definitely, it's just again, we're just not used to hearing these kind of things. We're not used to hearing people be so honest, and it's not to kind of criticize him for being honest or anything, but it's just
I guess it's kind
yeah,
of just it's a learning experience for all of us, isn't it? Really, I think that's just kind of what we just need to continue to, add these things up to. We've had another comment here from Snake, who says, "I love him, but he can be very contradictory," which is kind of, I think, fair enough. Simon Ewan says, non-negotiable principles, no excuses, no spins. Yeah, I guess so. G says, what happened to Ange's anxiety when we got pumped by Newcastle and Brighton? And I think that's a fair point to raise again. It seems to be it's quite on his terms, isn't it? Like, this is a travesty. This is an absolute travesty. Well, you keep conceding goals from corners. What's going on there? Don't talk to me about that. That doesn't matter. That stuff, that's just, we're building a process here. And do you know what I mean? How tetchy he got when he was kind of asked why we are pretty much a corner equals a goal at one stage for Spurs this season, you know, and he didn't like that at all. So I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose on one hand, that stuff is like your ability as a football manager, and the other
Mm,
side of it, which is what he was referencing on Tuesday, was the integrity that he has. So you could be the worst football manager in the world, but integrity is still important. So yeah, I can kind of get that. So maybe they are sort of slightly different, but yeah, if either way, you're losing games, aren't you? So
yeah. He was asked a bit more about the Rodrigo Bentancur stuff. Just, you know, are we going to see more of that fire in him next season? But it's not that interesting. Um, you mentioned earlier that it's not just the players who haven't bought into everything entirely, but also staff. Could there be changes to your staff for next season? He said, it's funny because I said changes a few weeks back and people just assumed that meant leaving. Changes just means the way we work, bringing more people in, different people. I've got a much better picture of the environment now and what we need. The club has been really supportive to say, whatever you need, extra resources, different kinds of people to bring in. That doesn't necessarily mean people will leave. The club has been really supportive about that. The whole buy in thing is not because people don't want to, it just takes time because this is a major shift from what it was. Not necessarily for the better, because time will prove that. Oh, come on, mate. Like, it's uh, nobody can say we don't play different or train differently, or we haven't brought in different kinds of players from what has been fairly consistent over the past few years. When you have that change, it naturally takes time for people to buy into things. I would like with this, it's just like I kind of get it. I kind of get that you can't give everybody like a complete peek behind the curtain, but it would just be nice to have a little bit more clarity, like because he keeps banging on about this point, doesn't he? And it's just like, just let us know what you mean. Like what is so radical about? I mean, I guess what is probably quite radical is that we hear like Eric Dyer said that he pretty much does none of the coaching training stuff himself, right? He's
with
barely ever on
tactics,
the
and he say,
training
yeah.
pitch or something. I
Oh
can't
right,
remember
yeah,
what it is, but
yeah. Well, yeah. Let's hopefully some of these changes means bringing in a set piece coach. Let's
yeah,
start there.
yeah. Um, blah blah blah. Something they sort of ask him more about. So does that mean you want to have a bigger coaching staff? And it's just like, no, it's just he's kind of like he's basically saying, what a fucking boring question. Do you know what I mean? Um, how do you make this group killers in big moments? He says it's not killers, it's just discipline of believing in something and sticking to that task relentlessly. That's what City do. And to be fair, we made them really uncomfortable. We did. I agree with that. A lot of the stuff they usually do, they couldn't do, but we couldn't stick at that. We had a lapse. And when you have a lapse against the very best, they punish that. Like I said, when I look at these 5 losses, they've all had elements of us playing some unbelievable football, but some enormous lapses in concentration and discipline. So that tells me, going back to my original point, the foundations aren't strong yet.
I don't buy it, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know about that because we haven't been playing that differently in certain regards to how we were playing when we were on an unbeaten run at the start of the season. There were still lapses of concentration in that game, and all right, maybe he's including that when he talks about improving, but I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Um, what's this bit? You made a real tactical tweak against City. Have you thought about that for a while, or was it reactionary? No, I've always said in my career, necessity is the mother of invention. One of the biggest misconceptions about me is I have one plan. I used every system in the world in my career, often during games, often during seasons. I've played just about every formation you can. I just thought we were obviously a bit short up front, etc., etc. Here's an interesting one. The Spurs fan base has been attacked in recent days. It's been suggested the trophy doubt is caused by the mindset of the fans on Tuesday night. Is that fair? He says, I don't know what that means. Supporters are there to back their club and do their bit. They've certainly done their bit for us this year. The amount of games we've won late at the stadium this year has been extraordinary. That's the crowd, and anyone that's been in this team, the supporters have played their every part of that. Now, like I said, the last game I don't understand, and I hold my hands up. I got it wrong. I sat here the day before, and this is what Chris was saying earlier. I sat here the day before and I mocked the whole thing because I really didn't believe that was the case. But if that's how people feel, and again, I can't because I'm not a Spurs supporter. They are this club, and this is their football club. They are the custodians, not me. Yeah, remember that. All I can say is offer my opinion of what you need to be successful. And for me, you can't be successful if your motivations change depending on the contest. But look, it's just so annoying because this is just it's one rando game like that's come along out of what decade. You could probably play for decades and not have this scenario come up again for Spurs, right? It's one rando game. We really were on, like, it was such a fine thread, us maybe getting Champions League. That was done. Like, this whole sense of like, and I said this on Twitter the other day, like, when we were miles better than Arsenal for pretty much a decade, especially under the Pochettino sort of tenure, miles better than them, we still detested them. We still hated them. We loved their failures. I hated them winning the FA Cup still. Did that affect us? Did that make us not? Did that affect us getting to a Champions League final? Did that affect us finishing above them for Christ knows how many years? For getting in the Champions League, for having our own sort of St Tottenham's Day in reverse, like 10 games before a season ends, like year after year? No, it didn't. It's just nonsense. This is one bizarro, aberrative situation that's been thrown our way. This is nothing to do with like any of this, because he's saying, he's at the top, he's basically saying, oh yeah, the supporters are there and I got this wrong. But then on the back end again, he's saying, well, we need to change that mentality. You're not going to change that mentality, fella. Like, that's not your job to do. Your job is to fucking teach the team how to defend set pieces and to think of solutions in games when the approach that you have brought into a game isn't working, to not carry on doing that, to perhaps, change your formations from time to time. Like, we've gone the last month, we've lost pretty much every single game we've played. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to let him just revert back to this kind of tacit, no, I'm going to change that mentality in them. You're never going to, mate. We're always going to hate Arsenal. You have to fucking deal with that. And that's my opinion on it. It's nonsense from him. It's nonsense from him. And he is playing into this narrative. He is, it feels to me like he is still throwing the fans under the bus for this. Like, and it irritates me. It irks me that he's doing it. It feels slippery.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's any suggestion that he's like, oh, I know what Conte said, so if I get myself into a sticky situation, I can just like play a couple of those notes and people will turn the ire somewhere else. I don't think it's anything like that, but he's inadvertently doing it with this stuff, and this is the kind of the problem I have with it. It's just you could make this all go away. And all right, maybe he thinks he doesn't want it to go away. He needs to challenge it. But again, we turn up, we support the team. What we say on Twitter shouldn't have any bearing. You shouldn't even be asked about it in a press conference. And if you are being asked about what fans are saying on social medias or podcasts or whatever, it's irrelevant, isn't it? Not again. Obviously, this podcast isn't irrelevant, but
Of course,
you know what I mean. I just find it such a bizarre thing, and the media have kind of rope-a-doped him because they've kind of handed him these sort of like tasty morsels about, oh yeah, we can mug off like social media and all this sort of thing and that sort of thing, and he's kind of taken the bait really, and he's still going on about sort of like, oh well, I expected the fans in the stadium to be kind of. I was like, you don't. It's so strange to kind of expect that and not to get it, as you say. It's a bizarre situation that has got way out of control now. I think just in terms of the amount of hours that I say had to spend talking about it, but it's the subject that's being talked about. He's still being asked about it now. So incredible.
It's irritating. We got a comment from Peter K. Gas, who says he lost the best striker in the modern era last minute, has the team fifth, and you people judge him, who the fuck are you? I mean, I'm a Spurs fan that has an opinion on him, Peter. And I was actually told at the start of the season that he wouldn't want Harry Kane, that he'd actually have us playing better football without Harry Kane, that Harry Kane would somehow hinder what Ange wants to do. So let's have some consistency of thought on that one, you know. Um, let's see what else Ange has got to say here. Not a lot more. I think that's pretty much the end of it for him. Yeah, I mean, an interesting one. An interesting one. The thing is, like, at the end of all this, mate, at the end of all this, even though it irks me, and I do get aerated when I start talking about it and I start kind of snowballing on these points, I'm still behind him. I still want, like, because, you know, the main thing for me is, right, you always see these pop up on Twitter and stuff like that. These little kind of passages of play where someone's like, this is what Ange is cooking. And you do see us knock the ball. There was one against Man City as well, where we built from the back, went from Vicario, ping, 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 ping across the ball. And it ends up with, you know, I think it was like Sonny who, you know, it sort of came to nothing in the final third, which is pretty much what's happened a lot this season. But you can see there is something there. There is just something there that I'm like, we get these little morsels of like, this is decent. And if just a bit more of this, bit more of this, and if there's a bit more solidity to what we're doing, we can actually be really good. And so there is something about Ange that excites me. And for all this stuff, like me complaining about him, I continue to say the conflicting thought in my head is we probably do need a fella that is as mental as this, that really is like win, 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 and that's it. That's all that this game is about. Win, 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 win. Don't question me. Don't mere mortal. Don't come to me with your concerns about corners, with your stupid tin pot rivalries. Win, and I want to win. And yeah, I quite like that, and that does give me some buy-in. That's why I'm not like, and I was openly for weeks at the end of Conte, get him out of my club, get Conte out of my club. I hate him. I hate Antonio Conte. Get rid of him. I'm not saying that for a second. So anybody watching this, anybody listening to this, don't for a second misconstrue it. I'm not leading the charge to get rid of Ange Postecoglou. I'm simply bitching about him like he's bitching about us. That's all that it is. You know? Don't you ever bicker with your loved ones? I think we all do, don't we?
Yeah. I thought about this. This is like being told off by, you know, you get told off by your parents, obviously, when you're a kid, and still now, in some regards.
Unfortunately.
This is like when you get told off by like an uncle that you
Yeah.
don't use, you know, and he just like shouts at you, like you're playing with your cousins or something, and you all get shouted at, and he shouts.
That's
at
enough
you,
of that. That
and
kind
you're
of,
like,
yeah.
well, what? No, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
Don't. My parents can tell me off, but you can't. So
Yeah.
it's that kind of that's just what I thought of earlier. This kind of feeling of like,
It's very good.
he's not supposed to be talking to me like this.
Yeah.
But again, maybe I was maybe I was playing up, Jack. Maybe I did need to be brought back into line. I don't know. It's just I hate Arsenal, Jack. All right,
I know.
can't help it.
I know. But that like we were saying on the patreon.com/RTR pod, like we were saying on the Patreon pods the other day, like this is the product that's sold. This is the product that's sold to America, to Australia, to all these new territories where they want the Premier League to grow. Come and join the most exciting, fiercest league in the world, fierce rivalries, fan hatred. Let's watch all these videos that Copper 90 produce of the hatred at the North London derby with flares and aggro and meat wagons everywhere and police on horses and all this type of stuff. This is what you sell, and this is just the thin end of it. The thin end of the wedge is, oh, I'm ambivalent as to whether or not Tottenham win because I hate Arsenal that much. I don't want them to win the league. Like, come on, man. Like, just this is what it is. This is what it is. And I do want to make that point again because I did say this one behind the paywall, but I have found it interesting to see the sort of civil war between American Spurs fans, how some of them are like, I'm American and we don't buy this mentality of throwing games. We just want to win games. And other American Spurs fans being like, man, that's such bullshit. Like, teams in like all American sports throw kind of throw dead rubber games towards the end of the season so they can get better picks in the next season or whatever it is. I don't fully understand the draft system, but I think, isn't it, the lower you finish, the more picks or better picks you get
You
and
get the
stuff like
first
that.
pick, yeah.
So I've heard that basically it's nonsense because there's a whole culture in American sports of gaming the draft system as well once it turns out that your season's a dead rubber. So, come on. We do have, let's move away from Ange. We do have a game of association football left to play. And unfortunately, it seems like Mauricio Pochettino could come back to haunt us on the final day of the season. There's a big sort of confluence of factors that could see Spurs ultimately finish sixth, Chelsea finishing fifth, and that if Manchester United win the FA Cup, which they could do, would see Spurs going to the Europa Conference League and not the Europa League. I would definitely like to see Spurs in the Europa League. I would like Spurs to try and win the Europa League. Seems like a winnable competition. However, I don't see it as an out-and-out apocalypse. If we are in the Conference League, I still want us to go out and try and win that. I want Spurs to just win whatever European competition they're in next season, because I think both of those tournaments are winnable. But we do have Sheffield United. And I think your point was, Phil, if we can't beat Sheffield United, look, it's in our hands now. If we don't beat Sheffield United, we quite simply don't deserve Europa League football anyway, you know?
Yeah, how can you argue with that? I mean, they're the absolute whipping boys this season. So yeah, you can sort of see a scenario though where if we did lose, what Ange would say in the press conference afterwards, saying, "Well, I thought our fans wanted to lose football games, but joking, half joking."
I'll tell you what, my head would be straight off my shoulders, spinning around, be flying into the sun, and I'd be podcasting all the way up there. Do you know what I mean? Be like, Phil, you got a minute? I'm grabbing the mic. My head's flying off.
Yeah, I mean, I've got this kind of like chaos, this thing about chaos that if you're not kind of winning everything, right? If you're not kind of like in the top four race or in the Champions League race or in the title race, for instance, there is something kind of fun about things falling apart. So that weird sort of like angry, toxic lizard part of my brain would kind of, not obviously, I don't want Spurs to get beaten again, don't get me wrong, but it would be very funny if that happened and then we had this whole thing over the summer of this fans wanting to lose and getting their just desserts. That would, as much as it would, ruin our next season, I just think that would be, I'd have to you just have to laugh all the way through it. But we're going to smash them up, so don't worry.
I hope so. Sitara in the comments has said, "I'm going full Alan Brazil." I've got far too much hair to be Alan Brazil quite yet, but I wish I had the booze tolerance of Alan Brazil. Also, apparently Pochettino has said in his press conference that he doesn't want the Spurs to lose.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll jump in there because I saw that.
Oh, go on.
He was basically his point was, in his kind of like jumbled way, was
Pochettino.
It's not about it's not about. He was like, well, it's not about like what hoping another team loses to kind of so that you get in there. It's like you do your job and then see what happens, sort of thing. So he wasn't kind of like
Postecoglou thing, right?
Sort of, or just again, sort of batting the question away more than anything. You do your job, and whatever happens. You don't sit there worrying about what other teams are going to do, which is a variation on the theme that we hear constantly every season.
Some key facts going into this one, Phil. Sheffield United have lost their past 3 league games against Tottenham, as many as they had in their previous 13 against them. They'd won 5 and drawn 5 in that time. Tottenham won 3-1 in their most recent away league game against Sheffield United, and they last won consecutive visits to Bramall Lane in December 1975. Why are we so tin pot against Sheffield United? This is worrying me a bit. Sheffield United have won their final league game in each of the past 3 seasons. They most recently did so in more consecutive, mate. You know what's going up here.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, God. Yeah, Tottenham have lost their final league game in only one of the past 13 seasons, with that loss coming at an already relegated Newcastle in 2015-16. Thank you very
I
much.
remember
We
that
know
well.
all about that one.
Yeah.
We know. We didn't need reminding of that one, did we? Oh dear. Oh dear. I mean, prediction?
4-1 Spurs, mate. I think we're going to want to end on a high, put a lot of this stuff behind us. Not saying that being away is a good thing, but I think that, it just kind of takes away this idea of the fans again. Right? Take the fans out of the equation as much as possible, because seeing as we're such a malevolent force about the whole future of the club, best we just don't attend at all.
The thing, I tell you what's irritated me particularly about the discourse the past week is this whole kind of Spurs fans and their losers mentality. Well, just the other week, like, we're always getting told, you lot have got ideas above your station. You're all too big for your boots. You all talk yourselves up all the time. Which one is it, lads? Which one is it? Like,
it's just all bad faith, though, isn't it? That's the thing. You can't get kind of too drawn into it, because they'll say the absolute opposite of what the thing is, because they're always looking for a way to dig you out one way or the other.
Henry Winter has been despicable. He has wound me up something rotten like this past week with a lot of the stuff he's been saying. We even have Robert Peston talking about it. Can't you stick to fucking platforming Nigel Farage or whatever, mate? Then, like, ooh, political.
I'm not being too ridiculous to say that if it had been a question in Parliament, do you think anyone would be that surprised? I'd be surprised and be like, "This is ridiculous." But would you be like, would your head be on Mars over that? You'd
Mr.
be like,
Speaker, I put it to the Prime Minister that Tottenham Hotspur should not have laid down their swords against Manchester City the other day. Isn't it? Do you know?
Well, it's not that far-fetched an idea, is my point, right? As far-fetched as it is, if it happened, you'd be like, this is just gone mad, but it's in keeping with everything else.
It would be one of those mealy-mouthed, weaselly little MPs as well that is trying to like appeal to the common man. I heard that Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Cup the other day. No, it wasn't that one, mate. That was a game that happened a couple of months ago.
Go through all his papers. The Football Association,
Coventry. No, the other team in Sky Blue. The Sky Blues. And they start tying themselves in knots. When remember David Cameron did that before, didn't he? When he couldn't decide if he was an Aston Villa or a West Ham fan, and he kept like doing the loops on that. Cretins, a lot of them. I think that's about it for a Friday evening. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Exhausted everything. Right?
Yeah, we have. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I don't know what we're going to do over the summer, but probably have a break.
We'll finger something. We'll talk about other things, eh?
Yeah.
How about that?
Talk about transfers. It's always a good one, isn't it?
Oh, how fun.
Is Emerson Royale getting sold to AC Milan? No, that's the answer. It's going to get loaned out for a year. But if you have enjoyed the ramblings of myself and Phil, you can listen to more of them, like wherever you can watch them here, or you can listen to them wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to listen to even more than that, sign up to the Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpods. Leave a rate. If you don't want to do that, fine. It's all right. I understand. Leave a rating. Leave a review, though. Drop a like. There's quite a few of you watching right now, and there's not as many likes as there are little eyeball viewing things. So, go and get that right up. Leave comments, share it on Reddit, Twitter, wherever. I don't know. Let's just end this now. Come on, you Spurs. Let's beat Sheffield United, please.
Get that right up, yeah. No.
Bye.